Welcome back to Real Estate 101. Today we're going to continue our discussion on home insurance and talk about some of the factors that the companies use to determine your home insurance premiums. And I'm pleased to be joined once again by Robert Atto of Atto Associates. Robert, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Joe.
So Robert, I want to start today's show and ask you, what is individualized pricing?
Well, more and more of this word has come up, individualized pricing. What it means to you is the companies want to offer you the best price possible. They want to determine the best price for your risk. In order to do this, instead of rating on one or two common factors like they used to, they're now rating on many different factors, and we'll go over these in our discussion today.
So let's talk about some of those factors. How does a roof affect the price?
Well, as everybody knows, each different type of roof has a different life expectancy. So the older your roof becomes, the older or the higher the rate for that roof would become on your insurance, obviously. An asphalt shingle might have a standard 20 to 25 years. Some of the clay or metal type roofs might have 50 to actually a lifetime roof. So it's important that the older the roof you get to know that that's actually costing you money on insurance. So make sure.
So the insurance companies will look at that.
Yes, so when you're looking at buying a house even, you can expect that's a factor, one of the many factors now that they'll look into when we call this individualized rating. So they're trying to establish a proper rate for the proper risk.
All right, so what about the location of the property? How does the city you live in affect the price?
Well, everybody might not know, but different areas like Toronto, for example, some of the sewers are over 100 years old. You get into other cities, all the sewer systems and everything might not be as old. The fire departments might be more modern. So these are all things that companies look at when they get into a different area and establishing a risk. Important for you is you might want to check into when you're buying a new home is ask the prior tenant if you had a lot of water problems in the house. This will help you not only establishing if you might have a problem in the future, but help because the insurance company is going to know if there was many claims in that area. So
right.
This is something that's going to affect you as well and something you should be aware of.
Now, does a client's claim history, can that affect the price?
Well, claims history is obviously one of the greatest factors on determining house insurance, not only the type of claim and the amount of claim, but what has you done since that claim happened? So if you've had a sewer backup loss, have you installed anything to prevent any future type of losses? So these are important factors to make sure that you advise the company if you had prior losses and you're looking for a new carrier to let them know what you've done to prevent this type of loss from happening again.
All right, so let's talk about something else, another factor that I think is playing a big role in today's real estate market, and that is the occupancy of the home. What about if it's rented?
Well, the occupancy of the home, the standard policy is meant for a standard family living in the households. If you're renting your house, you're going to have a type of insurance, and the cost is going to go up. These are things you must discuss with your insurance broker and insurance company just to make sure you have the proper coverage. But obviously, if you have a rental occupancy, you're going to have more cost associated with your insurance. Not a lot more, but a little bit more, because obviously your tenant is not going to be as responsible as you would a homeowner looking after your own property.
All right. And what about the electrical in the home? How does that play a role?
Well, the electrical plays a huge factor in your home, and it's something, especially as first-time home buyers, should be looking at. The older your home, the more issues you're going to have. For example, in a 100-year home, you might have something, a knob and tube wiring in your home. Most companies will not insure a house containing knob and tube wiring, so that's something you should factor in, that you might have to replace all of this wiring prior to getting insurance even. As your house gets a little newer, in the 70s they had something called aluminum wiring. Now, aluminum wiring wasn't necessarily an issue by itself, but when you mashed it together with copper and not properly installed, it could cause a fire.
Yeah, dissimilar metals, right?
Yeah, so the insurance companies are very attuned to there may be a problem there. So what they might insist is that you get an electrical contractor making sure that it's been properly installed. And the more updates you put into your electrical, the company will actually factor that into your rate as well. So they know you're doing something, they know you're trying to update your house. You might have an older house that has 60 amp, a lot of them might have an issue with this, but you can, if you tell them that you've just upgraded to 100 amp, this all plays a role. How long ago was it that you updated your home, and this will all play into a factor in your insurance.
All right, so What about the plumbing? Does that factor into the pricing as well?
Well, the plumbing is a funny thing. I mean, it's kind of like the electrical too. The older you get, you might have some cast iron piping, some old steel or metal piping that the insurance companies just don't like because they break over a period of time. Simply the age of your plumbing. If you haven't done anything, you have an older house on 100 years old, they're going to insist that you get a plumber in again. Mainly what the insurance companies are looking for is that you've done some upgrading to copper and PVS plastic. And that's what they're looking for. And the most recent update, so it's important that you find out these days when you're purchasing the home, how long ago was your plumbing updated and what exactly was done. And that way you know too what you might have to look at in the future to update.
Right, okay. So let's talk about something else that is, it's fairly standard in most homes, and that's the heating system. Does that factor into the pricing?
Well, I mean, the heating is a huge thing only because there's many different types of heating. You have gas heating, you have oil heating, you have wood stove, and you have, when you're talking about secondary heating, you're talking about a lot of people that might do it themselves, put in a wood stove and actually have no idea what they're doing. Basically, insurance companies looking for furnaces that are less than 25 years old. When they're getting over that, they're getting a little nervous if it's gas. The other thing, if you get into oil, the big thing is if you have an oil tank, many companies will not insure you if your oil tank is over 15 years old. What many people might not know is the rust or corrosion that could cause eventual oil leakage and losses of tens of thousands or millions of dollars could be your responsibility because it's actually rusting from the inside, and rust and corrosion is the standard exclusion under the policy. So be careful when you're looking at your type of heating. What type of heating is it, and was it properly installed, and how long ago was it last updated? You should, as any individual, I think you should look at a yearly contract just to make sure that it's being updated and taken care of. And I think you'll see that reflecting your price and for insurance as you go on.
All right, so let's talk about some essential services like the distance to a fire hall. Does that affect the price?
Right. Obviously, the distance to the fire hall, the quicker they can get to your home in case of fire, the better chance they have of putting out a fire.
Right.
So if mainly if you're in a residential area, it doesn't play in a big factor because there's supposed to be a fire hydrant within 1,000 feet. When you start getting out to the rural areas, you'll see that you won't have any fire hydrants, so it's all the distance to the fire hall. So if you're within 8 kilometers normally of a fire hall, you'll be in a different rating. Now, as soon as you get outside of that is when you want to be careful because the prices start to increase quite a bit. So you should be cautious that if you're getting into a home that's in excess of this amount, that your premiums may be quite a bit more than if you're in the city, simply because it takes them so long to get to the fire and they don't have the updated equipment that they would have in the city.
Absolutely. All right, so what about a client's credit history? Can that affect the price?
Well, it's a touchy subject in the insurance industry. A lot of people believe that we shouldn't use credit rating, but the simple fact is insurance companies are using it. Most of the time, they make it quite apparent. It's not quite a credit history check that you would see maybe being used by a mortgage company.
Financial institution.
Financial. It's basically a number, you might call it a glorified number that says either 1 for good and 5 for bad. And what's happening is if they ask you for this, and you say it's allowed, they'll actually go and pull a soft hit on your credit history. It'll come up, and the better your credit rating is, the better your price of insurance. In some cases, the factor is 25 or 30%. It's tremendous. So if you have a great credit history, you might as well ask them to pull it and get that rated in your policy. It will help you, and it's something that's not going to go away, I think, anytime soon.
So for today's final question, do insurance companies calculate the cost to rebuild your home in the event of a disaster? And how does that affect the price?
Well, obviously, the higher the value of your house, the higher the value of your insurance. But what's important here is that you establish a proper rate. So just make sure you get the proper information, give it to your insurance company, and they'll establish a proper value for your home. It's not so much important about the price here. It's what's important that you get what
the coverage you need.
The coverage you need. Yeah. So price. Don't be worried about the price here. Get the proper information. You'll be glad you did.
Okay, Rob. Thanks for coming on today's show.
Great to be back, Joe.
If you're looking to save money on your home insurance, contact Atto Associates. Thanks for watching. I'm your host, Joe Terceira, and we'll see you next time.